Welcome to Plot Twist, where we dive into the heart of cinema's most unexpected moments. Every story has a twist, but some twists leave you speechless. Are you ready for the twist? Toad is part of an experiment conducted by the Army, where they take newborn babies and start training them at a very young age. They are taught that emotions, love, and family do not exist, and that their only family is their battalion. They are instructed to obey orders without thinking and are subjected to extremely harsh training. From the age of 6, they are exposed to violent scenes and made to run very long distances. Anyone who falls behind or fails the training is immediately killed without hesitation. As they grow older, they are trained in shooting at moving targets, even if the target is holding their own mother and baby hostage. The solution is to kill both the mother and the child to eliminate the target. These people are truly heartless. By the time these boys reach the age of 14, they have completed their training. Their military rank and identification number are tattooed on their faces. At the age of 38, Toad and his team are assigned missions in the wars of the 6 cities, including Moscow, Argentina, and other locations. Orders are carried out coldly, with Toad killing civilians and criminals alike without hesitation. Over time, a newer, stronger, and younger generation of soldiers is created. They are lined up in front of the older soldiers, led by Soldier Toad. The new team is commanded by Captain McKeem, who asks the officer in charge of the older team how they are performing. The officer responds that they are excellent, but Captain McKeem is not satisfied and tells him that the new generation of soldiers is stronger than the old one. The officer replies that the new soldiers lack war experience, unlike his men who have fought in many battles. In the end, they decide to put both teams through a series of tests to determine which team is better. The first test involves shooting, followed by a speed test. Toad faces off against the new soldier, number 607. Although 607 starts running after Toad, he overtakes him by a significant margin, and Toad shows signs of exhaustion. The officer comments that the endurance of the new soldiers is superior. Despite Toad being tired from running, he is still able to outperform his opponent in climbing the iron chain. Toad is ordered to climb it, and he obeys immediately. When Soldier 607 receives the same order, he follows suit. Captain McKeem then asks the officer to send 2 more of his men to climb with Toad and engage in combat with Soldier 607. The soldiers follow the order, but 607 defeats them one by one, leaving Toad as the last man standing. Toad sustains a severe injury to his eye, but eventually falls like his comrades. The colonel angrily calls out Soldier 607 because he got injured and scolds him in front of his peers, saying, "Do you know how much was spent on your training and food, only for you to be humiliated like this by an outdated model?" He then orders him to return to the lineup with his team. When the officer confirms that Toad was the best among his men, the colonel retorts, "Don't you understand yet that your men are obsolete?" He then pulls out his gun and shoots one of them in the head, explaining that the report should state their deaths as an accident. On the spaceship B-376, which dumps waste on the planet Arcadia, a scrap planet, Toad and his deceased comrades are among the discarded waste. Toad regains consciousness moments before being dumped onto the planet and tries to stay on the spaceship, but the force of the waste being ejected pushes him down against his will. He falls to the planet as the spaceship departs. When he looks down, he sees people walking and quickly approaches them. Suddenly, a massive sandstorm heads his way, and he clings to a nearby pole until the storm passes. He continues walking through the graveyards until he reaches some primitive buildings. As he climbs the stairs, another storm hits, causing him to fall to the ground. Before losing consciousness, he sees a group of small children staring at him in curiosity. In the gathering place of the colony's residents, everyone is filled with fear and anxiety. One person asks the leader where they found him and how. She confirms that he was found alone, unarmed, and unconscious. Someone enters the hall and announces that they searched everywhere and found no other soldiers or spaceships on the entire planet. He also mentions that the winds are incredibly strong. The leader declares that this man is injured and sought refuge with them, so they must help him. She assigns the task to Sandra, the wife of Maze. The next morning, when Toad opens his eyes, he finds himself lying on a bed with Sandra giving him medicine. She notices some writing on his arm and later tells her husband that it says, "Argentina Sector, Shanghai 2021. Her husband responds that this is the name of a battle, meaning the man is a soldier. Their young son, Naivan, sneaks in to watch Toad as he sleeps. When his father calls him, he runs back to him. Toad wakes up to the sound of the father playing with his son and wife. When they see him awake, the father apologizes for disturbing him with their noise and gives him a crutch he made to help him walk. In the dining hall, where all the colony residents are gathered, Toad eats as if he hasn't eaten in 100 years. Maze even gives him his own food to satisfy him. Suddenly, one of the colony residents stands up angrily and says, "I don't understand how you don't remember how you got here. You're not running from something, are you?" Toad sharply replies, "No, sir." When asked why he is alone, he responds that his services were no longer needed and he was replaced by another soldier. When Maze asks how he was replaced, Toad replies in his military manner that he was replaced by a stronger soldier. At home, Sandra tells Toad that they left Earth 12 years ago and have been living on this planet since. Many people died when their spaceship crashed and they started setting off fake explosions and lighting fires to attract the attention of a civilized planet that might allow them to live with them. Unfortunately, that never happened, and people have given up hope of being rescued. The best thing is that no one on this planet bothers them because their planet is not worth much. They are barely able to survive there. In the soldiers' base on the space map, Captain Mai explains that they want to distribute surveillance points across the Arcadia system and that they will send new soldiers to patrol the areas marked on the map. This is just a routine task, but it's also an opportunity to train the new soldiers. And he wants to see their reactions in real-world situations, not just in training. When they ask the captain what he will do about the opposition, he replies that it's all nonsense and that the resistance in this place will be very weak. The officer tells him that there are miners and refugees in the area, and the captain sees them as enemies. On the scrap planet, Sandra is planting some plants, and Toad is sitting next to her, learning from her. Suddenly, a green snake appears, and she cuts off its head immediately, throwing it away. She explains that he must be careful of these snakes, as they might not harm someone like him, but they could hurt her or her son. She tells him that her son was once attacked by a snake like this, and he was on the verge of death for a while. That's why he's still slow to speak. She gives him a small plant and tells him to try planting it. He does so in seconds. Later, at the scrap planet, her husband explains to Tood that they're trying to find something useful in the junk thrown away by ships from another planet. Anything they find, they take with them. Suddenly, a strong wind blows, and one of them dies due to the wind. They try to save him, but they can't, and he's left hanging between life and death. Tood pulls the rope and finds a machine gun. At the same time, he sees a ship from their planet throwing junk into space. Captain Mai tells him that the ships come every 15 to 20 days to drop their junk, then leave. He asks Tood to give him the machine gun. Later in the compound, Tood feels strange emotions he's never felt before. He finds himself interested in Sandra and always wants to be near her. One day, while helping him chop vegetables, he accidentally cuts his finger, but doesn't realize it and continues chopping as if nothing happened. When Sandra sees the cut, she bandages it and asks him if he's ever felt anything. He doesn't answer at first, but later tells her it's the fear of punishment. Sandra feels sorry for him, and when she tries to hug him, Tood is confused, not understanding what she is doing. On New Year's Eve, Tood is sitting among the colonists, watching them sing, dance, and celebrate. He feels out of place among them and reflects on the joy they're experiencing compared to his own dry, obedient life, where he always followed orders without emotion or thought. He walks away and sits alone outside. Later, the man who saved him from death earlier brings him a gift to celebrate the new year. Sandra tells Tood that her husband is in the meeting room practicing, and when they get there, Tood sees him practicing by punching a piece of metal scrap hanging from the ceiling. Children are watching him in awe. The leader asks them to go back and review their lessons. At home, Mai tells his wife that the inhabitants are no longer comfortable with his presence, and there will be a meeting about him today. Sandra asks him if he's afraid of Tood, and Mai admits he's afraid of Toad's power, believing he could easily crush him. Every day, Toad's strength grows stronger. In the meeting room, Toad begins to feel guilt for the people he has killed, especially a child who had looked at him with fearful eyes before he killed her. At that moment, the man who brought him the gift earlier comes in, and before he realizes it, Tood strangles him with his hands, but stops just before he kills him. At home, the young boy wakes up to play with him. Toad sees a green snake beside the boy, grabs his shoe and hits it to teach him how to kill a snake. He throws the shoe to the ground, but the snake jumps at the boy. Tood grabs the snake by the head and throws it onto the ground, attempting to kill it the way he taught the boy. But the boy's father kills it with a spear to the head and scolds Tood, telling him he could have killed his son. At the meeting, the colonists decide that Tood must leave, and they give him food, water, and warm clothes. Tood leaves the colony and heads toward the scrap planet. While sitting by the fire to warm up for the first time, Tood cries. This moment marks the beginning of his transformation from a programmed killing machine to a human being capable of feeling emotions. The next day, Sandra and her husband are asleep when a snake climbs onto their bed, but their son, using what Tood taught him, kills the snake. Mai feels guilty and goes out to find Tood. When he finds him, he apologizes. Meanwhile, a ship carrying soldiers lands on the planet, and they unload vehicles that resemble tanks. Mai tries to stop them, but Toad stops him and tells him to follow him. They run to the colony, but Soldier 607 sees them and opens fire, wounding Mai in the leg. They run and hide, and Tood tries to treat Mai's wound. The tanks continue on their way to the colony. Mai decides to save Sandra and the boy. On the main ship, a soldier reports to the leader that 607 has spotted and killed 2 people on the planet. From a distance, smoke rises, indicating the presence of refugees. The captain reacts eagerly, seeing this as a good opportunity to test his men. He tells them to send in more soldiers. Meanwhile, the refugees are nervous and scared, and their leader tells them not to worry and to prepare to defend themselves. The leader goes out to speak with the soldiers, but when she approaches, they kill her and open fire on the camp. 3 heavily armed soldiers wearing masks land in the camp and begin shooting, with 607 giving orders to burn everything down. Mai and Tood, witnessing this, decide to act. Tood descends from the ceiling and kills the soldiers in moments. Then Riley's team descends to monitor the battle. One of the soldiers attempts to burn Sandra and the children, but Toad kills him with a grenade launcher. He takes their communication device and makes a strange noise, signaling a high-ranking military officer's presence on the battlefield. Upon receiving this information, Mai's fear is evident. He refuses to send more soldiers to the camp. He tells the captain to pull his men back and bomb the area with mortars and rockets from a safe distance. Meanwhile, Sandra learns from Tood that her husband has been killed. When she prepares to fight, she asks if they will return. Tood tells her they have orders and they must follow them. He asks about the number of soldiers, and the response is that only 17 remain. She says, "You'll fight 17 soldiers alone?" He replies, "And I'll kill them too." At the battlefield, Tood hunts down the soldiers one by one. He throws one into a pit full of snakes, kills another with a dagger to the eye, and shoots the rest from a distance. In the end, only the tank with soldier 607 remains, who was firing at the refugees in their camp, killing many of them. Todd takes control of another tank and uses it to kill the remaining soldiers. He then collides with the tank of soldier 607. When Mikey contacts them from the main ship, he is informed that all his soldiers are dead. Mikey orders Riley's team to plant a bomb on the planet to destroy everything on it. It turns out that 607 is still alive, but injured. He takes an injection and some pills to regain strength, and, along with one of his comrades, searches for Todd. Meanwhile, Sandra hears footsteps approaching her and the children in the hideout. She steps out to see Todd, who tells her to bring the little boy and follow him. When 607 appears, Todd hands the boy back to her and says, "Wait here." He engages in a fierce battle with 607 and ultimately defeats him. Todd gathers the remaining refugees and moves them closer to the main ship. When his former comrades see him, they salute him with a military gesture, as he was once their leader. On the main ship, the captain orders the officer in charge to take off. When the officer refuses to leave his men behind, the captain shoots and kills him. Hearing a noise outside, soldiers bring the captain and his two associates to Todd. When Mikey sees Todd, he pleads for his life. Terrified, the soldiers throw Mikey and his two associates onto the planet before taking off in the spaceship. As they attempt to disarm the bomb, it explodes, destroying the entire planet. On the main ship, Sandra tends to the wounded. Her son leaves her side and goes to the command room, where he reaches out to Todd to lift him. Todd picks him up and points to the planet they are heading to. And with that, our movie summary ends. Stay tuned for the next video and a new movie summary.